Greetings everyone, welcome back to Punk and Paisley. This is your host Chris, and we are at the midpoint of our evaluation of the Punk and Disorderly series of seminal punk rock compilations, UK 82 punk, and we're seeing how they stack up against each other. But it's nice to have that little dangling carrot, and the dangling carrot in this case, the MacGuffin, is that I'm giving numeric ratings to the 3 volumes of the Punk and Disorderly series. We're in video number 2, Punk and Disorderly 2, Further Charges, and I suggest perhaps that you start with the video for volume 1, which I will put in the comments. Interestingly, volumes 2 and 3 were not through Posh Boy out of Los Angeles like the first volume. Rather, they are through something called Via Anagram, which was a division of Cherry Red out of Britain, and licensed to something called Sounds Interesting Records in, of all places, Stone Harbor, New Jersey. Now that's eyebrow raising for me because, as I've noted in a few other videos, I'm from Philadelphia, and Stone Harbor is not only a summer shore point at the South Jersey Shore, and that's pretty much all it's known for, but it's actually one of the nicer ones. And I did a little digging, not to dox anybody, but I did a little digging into Sounds Interesting Records, which seems to have existed from 1979 through about 1987, and put out mostly neo-garage compilations, a lot of stuff connected to Boston and Cape Cod, oddly enough. So Cape Cod and one of the nicer South Jersey shore points, 2 of the places that I would not at all ever expect, would not be on my bingo card for licensing or releasing early 80s punk rock. Just isn't something that I would have figured or seen. Yeah, I looked a little bit into the figure behind Sounds Incorporated Records, what I could find via the usual music databases, and the guy seems to have also, in this century, associated with the release of the Shake Some Action retrospective looks at power pop and that sort of thing, as the title heavily implies. Just an enduring mystery. Something that I never noticed before. If it weren't for doing these videos, I never would have read the fine print on the record, and I never would have seen that, and I never would have had Stone Harbor, New Jersey jump out at me so dramatically. I'm going to need the readers for this one, because I did some math. And this record starts strong once again. Our first track on side 1, Sick Boy by GBH. Now, I noted in the last video that I thought the 2 best early GBH tracks were Race Against Time, which is the final track on Punk and Disorderly Volume 1, and I mentioned I thought the other really good track was Sick Boy from the early days, and though, you know, it starts off, I had forgotten completely that it's the initial track on the A side of the second album, which is incredible. And I'll repeat what I did in the first video. You could accuse GBH of sounding generic with Sick Boy, except for the fact that it's the other bands copying GBH that are the ones who sound generic. They can't be generic putting out Sick Boy because they're the ones putting it out. This is not the Clash or the Pistols. This is something that's faster, it's more aggressive, a catchy hook. There's one hook, it's a catchy hook, and it's it's fast, it's done, it's tight. I give it a 10. It's the reason that if you buy a record that looks like this, that's what you want it to sound like, which means that our running average for the record is 10, and for the second album in a row, we apparently have the greatest album recorded in human history, judging by the math. The second track on here is The Expelled with a song called Dreaming, very much a pop punk on the punk side of things, with a female vocal, catchy hook, punk and pop blended in the best sense. Dreaming, I give a 9. That is a nice track. Lots of fun. It'll have you pogoing around the room. And that brings us to a 9.5 for the album. Things are looking pretty darn good. Track number 3, from the insane is El Salvador. Now we're getting political. The United States at the time was backing the Contras, basically fascist counter-revolutionary movement in El Salvador, sending guns. The lyric is sending their guns, sending their sons, and really backing a death squad government in El Salvador. Plus ça change. We are starting to get a little thrashier. We're starting to get some heavier, thrashier riffing here, but we still have, and this is true for most of the tracks on this album and in this series, we still have a foot in rock. We are not completely divorced from the rock structure of a song yet, as you get in some hardcore and thrash. That's coming. That was already in the United States with a lot of the hardcore bands, that it just sort of abandoned the rock structure, any semblance of having a blues structure other than some of the repetition in the songs. The Insane still have a foot in rock with this extremely strong track, El Salvador. I give it a 9. It's better than I remember it. It's better than I remembered it being. By the way, this is the first time I've given the entirety of this album a straight through listen in probably 30 years. I probably bought this in about 1986, came out in 1982 with hopefully fresh ears to give an evaluation. Yeah, El Salvador is a 9, and that brings us down to a 9 1/3 points, which is still an extraordinarily strong album. Track number 4, we have One Way System with Stab the Judge. You have to love the title. Stab the Judge. There is a variety of illegalities recommended in this track. I love the title, love the spirit. There's more going on than the song than I remembered. They actually bothered writing a bridge for the song. It's a little more complex because I remembered the chorus was Stab the Judge. I wasn't remembering the entire song. It's slightly better than I remember it. And I rated it an 8, a solid 8. And that brings us to a 9 for the overall evaluation for the album thus far, for the average, which is an extraordinarily strong album. I mean, if you're buying this for the spiky-haired UK 82 punk, it's paid for itself already on the first 4 tracks. Now, track number 5, I forgot existed. I knew that there were a couple of tracks on the album that I considered to be kind of filler material, a little bit weaker. I didn't remember the band names, didn't remember what they were, and this, unfortunately, is one of those tracks. Track number 5 is Court Martial, and the track is Gotta Get Out. And, you know, we gotta get out of track 5 because it doesn't really have a whole lot going on. Not particularly memorable, not really catchy enough for dynamic songwriting. It's kind of there. It's punking along. I gave it a 3. And that brings our average down to a 7.8, which is still quite strong. Still quite strong. Number 6, track number 6, action-packed London Bouncers. This is Personality Plus. There's a female vocal. She sounds angry. She's angry at the bouncers in London for being bully boys. They antagonize. She's screaming. It's a little shrill. Honestly, it's a female vocal gone a little shrill. There's a few songs on here with female vocals that are more sung. This one's more shouted. It has an approach with a clever lyric that is a little more like early rap. It's almost early rap influenced, although I don't believe it is. I just believe that it gets to the same place as early rap did, with people who want to be involved in music but aren't necessarily that musical or don't sing that well. So they're doing rhyming couplets. And I think that that's where we get with London Bouncers. It's a rock punk track. It's a simple track, but it's enjoyable, a little bit shrill. And I gave track number 6 for that reason a 7. Still a solid track, a 7. Brings us down to 7 2/3 points for the album so far. Track number 7 is The Mask. The Mask is the MASQUE is the song. The band is The Dark. Don't sleep on this track. This is good stuff. It is slower paced. It is goth influenced. There's some drama. There's some melodrama, like a lot of the best of the UK 82 stuff. They're selling it with personality. They're selling it with a little melodrama. And there's a little more going on musically with this track than you get on a lot of the others. And I really like it. I like it more now than I did in the 80s. I gave the track a 9. It is strong. It is a nice blend of the punk, the pop, the goth. And that brings us up to a 7.86 for the album thus far. Once again, things sounding and looking pretty good. Track number 8, the side rounds off with an incredible song titled Gangland. It's by the Violators, who are one of the classic UK 82 bands. Gangland they threw the kitchen sink on this thing. You start with thick, heavy production. A lot thicker, heavier production than you got on a lot of this punk stuff at the time. This thick bass line, and then we build layers on there. It's like Phil Spector gone punk. We're building layers on top of that with the choruses, with the guitar, and you know, these whispered, you get whispers in your ears till you make the little hairs on the back of your neck stand up. You've got this crunch. You've got the pounding on the tom-toms. And it is a retelling of the movie The Warriors, which just makes for a wonderful track. And The Warriors, at this time, I think came out in 1979, 1978, and my understanding was banned outright in Britain after it opened because of fear that it would initiate gang violence. So it became difficult to see the movie in Britain. I think it ended up on VHS, or maybe it ended up on bootleg VHS copies. And it's my understanding that the film became a little harder to see, and a retelling of a movie like this is straight up folk stuff. You would expect that in the 1920s on a folk or blues record, when they would sometimes do a retelling of a movie on two sides of a 78. And this is a total throwback. There are some things in punk rock that are a little folk music. Not in their style so much, but in their social approach, and in some of the way that there were these memes that were carried through. And I'm sure people have written many a master's and PhD dissertation on this. I'm sure I'm not the first to notice it, but it's amazing that you did have this contemporary retelling of a movie in a pounding punk rock track with the kitchen sink thrown in the production. It's a very simple song. I'm not going to say it's a complex song. This is not Led Zeppelin. This is not John Bonham, deciding to do part of the song in 6/8 time and see who notices. No, we have none of that. Straight ahead, very simple track, but with everything selling it. And you came here, you looked at this cover, and you came here for the punk rock, and you were delivered it. I give the track a 9, a solid 9. That brings us up to an 8 for the first side of Punk and Disorderly Volume 2, Further Charges. This is a strong album. We jump to side 2. And we start with once again, side 2, like Volume 1, side 2 of Volume 2 starts with your only token American band. In this case, not San Francisco and Dead Kennedys, but Los Angeles and Channel 3, with what many people consider to be their best song, I've Got a Gun, which is an absolute corker. I give that track a 10. If you've not heard it, you need to hear it. That is vital. Early 80s Los Angeles punk becoming hardcore. There's still a foot in punk rock and the rock structure of a song, and a foot going toward faster, harder hardcore. And track number 9, in effect, the first track of the B-side, brings us up to an 8.22. The 10th track, the second track on the B-side, Abrasive Wheels Are Back. I mentioned on the first Punk and Disorderly comp that Abrasive Wheels are one of the few bands that actually sounds like their name. They sound like a grinding abrasive wheel. The grinding guitar is back. There's a sing-along style vocals, woo-woo vocals, which bring the quality of things up a little bit, but the songwriting for me still lacks some dynamism that you need if you're going to thrash away. You need to write a song as tight as you play in order to get away with a thrashathon. And I give this track a 5. It's not the worst thing. It's not the best thing. It brings us down to a 7.9 for the album, which is still quite strong. Track number 11 is The Enemy with Fallen Hero. I was rooting for this song because it's got a great anti-war lyric. It's by a band called The Enemy, who are not as well known. It's got that recorded down the hallway sound. It's a little tinnier. I don't mind that. I don't mind that in my punk rock. I actually resent the cleanliness of the big studio production of a lot of that really started coming in maybe the tail end of the 80s and into the 90s. I don't like that so much in my punk rock. I like the individuality. I like the fact that these were being done in studios that weren't really recording that kind of music a lot, and that it was done on the cheap, and that you're getting these tinny guitar noises, and you're getting cardboard box sounding drums sometimes. I quite like that. To me, that adds to the charm. And this song has a lot of charm. It's not a super strong song in terms of songwriting, in terms of dynamism or memorability. It's not the worst. I gave it a 6, and that still keeps us at a 7.73. We then get the 12th track is Riot Clone. I've never heard anybody say the band name out loud, so I'm not sure if it's Riot Clone, as if there were no slash in between it, or Riot Clone. Do I have to pause because of the slash, or do I not pause because of the slash in your band name? I don't know how to say the band name. This is why we have punctuation and why we should not abuse it. Riot Clone, interestingly, are noted on the back cover that they are the only band noted donating the royalties for the Riot Clone track are to be donated to the Animal Liberation Front. That's quite something else in the early 80s for a band that was not totally an anarcho-punk band, for a band that's actually being licensed to Sounds Interesting Records in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, that are usually putting out garage band stuff, the Liars and that sort of thing. That's really quite something. Their song is Death to Humanity. I wish that I liked it a bit more. It's got more of an American hardcore band sound, or the anarcho-punk sound. There is a drummer with very busy fills. The drummer with the fills and the rapid drumming, it seems to be the band's, the band is leaning on that. That's sort of the party trick. It's played at hardcore speed. It's a very simple song. It's not the worst song. Death to Humanity. I give it a 6, and that brings us down to a 7.58 for the album thus far. 13th slot is The Wall with their song Hobby for a Day, which is another anti-army, anti-war track. There's a lot going on in this song. Very interesting songwriting. You have some keyboard. You have some interesting effects on guitar and keyboard. There are some people who might even say this sounds a bit new wave. Whatever that means, that's the subject for an upcoming video. A little slower pace, changing up the pace, especially after the Riot Clone track. And just a really good song. Better than I remembered it. And I gave it a 9. I gave The Wall a 9. And that brings us up to a 7.69. And then in 14th place, we have Disorder again. Now, you may remember that Disorder was on Punk and Disorderly. I gave their track a 3. I thought it was far and away the weakest track on the album. And they outdid themselves here. Track 14 here is something called More Than Fights. More Than Fights is less than a song. They seem to have not given overly much thought into what a song might consist of. It's a lot of noise in the sloppiest, worst way. This is not a neoclassical composer carefully, artfully selecting the screams and the drum kit falling down the steps. This sounds like if my friends and I in 1986 took the living room garage punk band that we may have been doing on a 1-track Radio Shack tape recorder, and we took it into the studio and said, yeah, we have a general idea for what we're going to do, and we're going to make a lot of noise, and then we're going to drag it out. And if you're going to do this sort of thing, there were bands doing this sort of thing sometimes, especially on hardcore compilations by 1982, and they would do it for 30 seconds. They would do it for 28 seconds. They would yell the obscenity that they had to yell, and then they would get out of the way and let the next band who might play their instruments better have a crack at it. But this thing goes on. It may go on for 3 minutes. It feels like a lot longer. I just kept thinking, are you finished yet, Disorder? Now I'm definitely going to get angry emails from the grandchildren of the band Disorder. My granddaddy was a pioneer. My grandpa. I can't even do a decent accent. It'll come out like pirate. Yeah, More Than Fights is horrible. This is the first time that I'm rating any songs on this channel that I'm actually giving a song a 1. I'm giving it a 1. Awful. You wasted my time and your time. And we're down to 7.21. Ironically, track number 15 is one of the best tracks, in my opinion, not only on the album, but in the series of 3 albums. It's the band Eraserhead. It's Eraserhead with a Z. And their song Shell Shock. In my opinion, they out-Ramone the Ramones here. It sounds like the Ramones, except for the fact that you do get the cardboard box sounding drums. Better sing-along than most Ramones songs. It's got more dynamism to it than most Ramones songs. It's as simple as a Ramones song. They out-Ramones the Ramones with, frankly, better vocals as well. I give that song a 10. It's funny that Disorder has the 1, Eraserhead has the 10, and that brings us up to a 7.4 for the album. Track 16, Vice Squad is back. Vice Squad, Becky Bondage, female vocals. You get multiple movements in the song. Vice Squad definitely took a little more time with their songwriting. They crafted songs that had decent bridges. They crafted songs that had drama to them, melodrama even. They're really showing off Becky's ability to sing. My only complaint about the track, the thing holding it back a little, is that the verses are a little simple, a little 1-2-1-2. As good as other parts of the songwriting are, could have been a little better, but still a strong track. The track's title is Resurrection. I gave it an 8. And that brings us to a 7.44 for the album, except for our X Factor. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos where I rate a record, I like to take a look at the whole package. What am I getting here? Do I like the art? Do I like the cover art? Did you tell me any? Well, yes, I do. I generally like the cover art. We got the Postcard Punks photos. We did a little coloration of them. It's a multicolor cover, which is not to be sneezed at in 1982. There was no guarantee that you were getting more than one color printing in 1982. So don't take that for granted. The fact that this is colorful is nothing to sneeze at. There is no information at all about the bands, save for the fact that Riot Clone asked for their proceeds to be donated to the Animal Liberation Front. That's a little bit disappointing, but again, I grade this on a curve because these bands are not in the DIY punk sphere where you were getting the lyric booklet and the whole package and the address to write to people and that kind of thing. That just wasn't happening here. It's not an expectation that you can have out of this generation of punk band out of Britain. I gave it another 7. And that brings us down slightly, actually, to a 7.41, 129 points divided by 17. That's the 16 songs plus the X Factor. 17 is the divisor, and 7.41. So, thus far, it stands Punk and Disorderly. Volume 2 further charges 7.41. And its daddy, Punk and Disorderly, Volume 1, is standing at a 7.88. Those are still 2 strong albums. We know that Punk and Disorderly thus far is king of the hill. However, we have yet to look at Punk and Disorderly 3, the final solution, which we will tackle in the next video. My name's Chris. I'd love to hear your comments. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm right. Tell me that you are a grandchild of somebody in disorder and that you're going to dox me and track me down and murder me. You could let me know that. Give me a heads up. At least give me the courtesy of a heads up. Like and subscribe. I'll be doing more of this, even if for my own amusement, whether or not anybody else is enjoying it. which is the spirit of punk rock. Until next time, kids, keep on rocking in the unfree world.